Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast, where we radiate awakening with Anne-Marie Marchant, who is the author of The Ripple of Awakening. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great to be here.
Yes, I love our UK guests because I love the accent, of course. So many of our listeners, Anne-Marie, are going through a spiritual awakening of their own. So how do you present that spiritual awakening in The Ripple of Awakening?
Yes. Basically the Ripple of Awakening is the book I wanted when I was in the dark night of the soul, if you like.
Absolutely. It's painful. It's very painful.
Oh, yes. Very dark.
Yes.
So, I mean, for me, the book is really helping us to understand what an awakening is and who we are. If it's a spiritual awakening, then we're spirit, right? But of course, most of us identify very much as a body, as an identity, as all these different constructs that the world has given us. And we believe that's us, as I did. I didn't know another way. And I certainly, in the very early days, before I even knew I was on an awakening, I didn't see myself as spiritual at all. And for me, it was a series of events that sort of happened that brought me to my knees. And I sort of started to scream out, if you like, for another way, because I was in a lot of emotional pain, I would say, and hadn't dealt with a lot of things. And then the universe heard me, unbeknown to me, because I was very black and white. I didn't have a faith. I didn't have a religion. And for me, it was very much, I want, prove it to me, or I don't believe it, basically. So I was quite...
I live in Missouri, which is the show me state. You have to show me to believe me.
Right. Well, I'd probably have fitted in very well then.
Yeah.
Because I was very much, and I was a hard nut to crack. I was very, in that phase, the early stages, I was, my sort of motto at the time was forward planning. I was never in the now. I was always ahead all the time, and thank goodness I've learned to see what that was all about. So really, yes, an awakening is coming home to who we truly are, but there are many blocks to that. And so within the Ripple of Awakening, I talk about my own experience, my own journey, and I interviewed other people because I saw that there were different stages and phases that were common, although they didn't necessarily look the same, of course, because each person's awakening journey is unique. But I saw these different phases and stages, and I thought, well, this isn't just a phenomenon, this seems to be a real thing. And so eventually, after many years of doing a lot of inner work and, really finding a relationship to the God of my understanding, because I didn't have that to start with, I thought, yeah, there's more to this. And thankfully, after many years, I got to speak to quite a few people that was happening to. But when you don't know that, it's a very lonely place. It's a very lonely place. And that's why I wrote it, really. It's like a hand to hold for people who, think, oh my God, am I crazy? What's going on? So that was a lot of my own experience, really. Yeah.
Now, how did you know what was going on?
Well, I guess if I sort of rewind a bit just to explain how that sort of came about. So when my children were quite young, I mean, they're grown up now, they're in their late 20s and early 30s. So, but when they were, I don't know, 4, 5, something like that, I had an experience, which I talk about in The Ripple of Awakening, which I call the falling.
Yes.
And that was the pivotal point. So what happened, I was in my bedroom, just doing my headless chicken, you know, perfect mum, perfect, you know, wife, just doing life on, you know, full ramp. And I just had this feeling come over me. And it felt like I was about to fall off a cliff or a precipice into my death, into a void of nothingness. It was the most surreal experience. I'd never, ever experienced anything before or like it. It was very frightening. It scared the hell out of me because as I say, I had no reference point. What's happening? And I was sort of in that fight or flight mode, you know, where you just go into complete panic. And I screamed out something like, you know, I can't do this anymore. You know, I've had enough. Stop. And then I kind of pulled myself together and I thought, oh my God, am I going crazy? You know, what just happened? Because I had no idea. But something heard me, unbeknown to me, because at that moment there was a surrender point. I had surrendered Anne-Marie. I'd surrendered my way because I was in such an overwhelm. And I had been such a control freak before that. So for me to surrender, it needed something quite big to kind of shake me. But thank goodness. And then life after that started to go on a different trajectory, which was not of my making. But it took me several years, I don't know, 5 or 6 years later, to look back and think, oh my goodness, that moment of what I call the falling, when I screamed out for help, everything started to come and unfold and take me on a different direction. And I started to join the dots and see that was the change. And I had a lot of, I started to meet different people as well, because I started to train in the holistic modalities. That's the direction it started to take me on, which I'd known nothing about before. And through a series of events and different things that happened, I, as I say, started to train in those modalities. And then several years later, I started to meet people who were spiritual. And even that was like, I didn't even know what that meant. I was just so clueless. And of course, they were talking about different things and energy and light and all this stuff. And because I was very black and white, you know, so it was quite an introduction. But what I saw, Christy, which was so incredible, is the universe started to bring me people to help me on every step of the journey and almost help me. You know, I had so many questions because I was so green, so naive to it all. And then these series of events, as I say, led me to different people over a period of years. I ended up in doing some training to do psychic development and open up to energy, and that was way out for me. I wasn't looking for that at all, but that started to open my mind, and I experienced things, you see. And I thought, well, I know what I just experienced, and I know what I saw in my mind and what I was starting to feel. So I was being convinced. I was starting to be convinced that there's something else going on here. And I guess then the big tipping point really was I met a lady called Sarah, who by this point I was kind of, I'd done a lot of training and I was sort of trying to fix everybody, but I hadn't looked within. And this particular lady that I met, Sarah, I ended up going to a group she was running around meditation and psychic development and angels, that kind of thing. And she, you know, the love that I felt when I walked in that room was like nothing I'd ever felt before. And I thought, I don't know what this is, but it feels amazing. And by this point, my marriage was beginning to fall apart. There was a lot of grief I'd never dealt with over the years that had bottled up. So I came to kind of a pivotal point in my life where I just thought I was, again, going crazy because everything was falling apart. And she was the first person that told me I was having a spiritual awakening. And I just looked at her and I thought, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I might be, but I feel dreadful. That's putting it very politely. And she was the first person I can honestly say in my life, so I was probably about early 40s then, that truly saw my soul and saw me ever, probably the first person ever. And it was scary in a way, because when someone looks deep in your soul and you don't really know what's happening, it's a bit, but she was very pivotal. And then my life literally fell apart completely. I was going through an awakening, the menopause, and then a divorce. So that was the dark night of the soul. It was very difficult.
Well, it's trial by fire. Yes. It really is. But your story is very common. I hear that from many of my clients. I mean, I had kind of the same thing. I call my awakening a slow roll because it really started when I was a teenager, but then culminated through a dark night of the soul as an adult. And but it's extremely painful. People do fall away from you. They fall out of your life.
Yeah.
Because you're no longer the same.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. So what do you define an awakening as?
Well, it's a great question, and it's the perfect question to ask, isn't it? And that's what I asked everybody I interviewed, because I interviewed several people for the book, because I knew my experience, but I wanted to ask them. And without doubt, everybody said the same thing. Distilled down, it was waking up to who you truly are,
right?
Which is an infinite child of God, call it, the universe, love with a capital L. It's your purest essence, that is eternal, that is loved always, and is pure, is innocent, and is part of the oneness, if you like, of, again, there's many names for it. And when we truly join with that, or open our mind to it and our heart to it, and actually join with it instead of resist it, then comes the peace, there comes the joy, there comes guidance from this benevolent, loving source. And as we open up to that, it's who we already are. It's like, it's not even outside of us. That's the irony. When you don't know what you don't know, it's like, is it out there somewhere? And of course it never is. But that's part of the seeker. And I was a seeker for many years, I realized, and I think that's a normal thing too. And if we're not careful, the ego will keep us seeking forever. And there's a great quote I love from A Course in Miracles that says that the ego's mantra is seek and do not find, because it doesn't want you to wake up.
Right. Yeah. It's comfortable where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't want you to go to the light.
True. Right. Because that's uncomfortable and it's unknown. So what was your spiritual background before this?
Zero.
So
it was nothing.
We're not brought up to go to a church. Hadn't been taught anything about religion, spirituality, God.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the basic stuff at school, RE. As I don't know what you have in America, but in the UK we have RE, religious education. Okay. And it's fascinating, because again, I write about this in The Ripple of Awakening. There was a point I remember literally switching off from religion in RE, because being a realist and being very black and white, when I was hearing about miracles and turning water into wine and the virgin birth, I was thinking, I don't understand, I can't, that doesn't compute. So I just literally switched off. I remember the day it happened. Really? And I do. I was literally in the class, just, almost nodding my head and, reading the words, but it was meaningless. It was completely meaningless to me because it made no sense. And I think also at the time in the UK, there was in Northern Ireland, there was the war going on.
Right.
And, I saw supposedly two sides of religion killing each other. And I thought, well, if that's a religion and that's God, no, thank you. I don't want that.
Right.
So that was the point. And it was just, and I was happy for other people to have religion, though I was never against it per se. But I just, as I say, I was just very black and white. I was very grounded. I was just a kind of person that just got on with life, and that was it. So it was a 360 for me. I mean, when it started, as I say, that point of the falling,
Right.
the universe had a lot of work to do to get me to open up. It really did. And that's okay, and that was the journey I went on. And for some people, it's wonderful, I'm sure you've experienced this too, if you speak to a lot of people, but to hear how it happens for different people, their journey and the resistance that comes in, or so quite often there's a tragedy that happens, or something that just brings us to our knees, and we can't go on. And I think that seems quite common, whether that's an illness or a death of somebody. I mean, for me, I had some really tragic bereavements. I mean, and it really, again, brought me to my knees, but had no coping mechanism of how to deal with it.
Right.
So I just pushed it all down, and eventually something has to give, and that's what happened for me. And then that's when I had to start facing this stuff, which I didn't want to. It was very hard.
Oh, it's horrible. Nothing that you believed before makes sense anymore.
Yeah.
The ways of thinking about things, what we were passionate about or disinterested in, completely flip-flops. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other commonalities that you found in your research?
Well, I think there's, part of what I've seen is, resistance comes in, which in the book, I do call it ego, that, and it's, I see it standing for edging God out, the ego, the acronym for ego.
Oh my goodness. Right.
Yeah. And so, I work with, quite a lot of people who are awakening or got different stages. When you first start, and as I say, I remember that place very well. It's frightening, as you say, because your whole identity is starting to be dismantled.
Right.
And that's frightening, right? Because it's like, what else is there then? This is what I was told, the world told me to do,
This is what I've always believed. Everybody I know thinks this way.
Exactly. So I think that resistance is very normal, and it's very frightening. And I see it in certain people where they kind of get so far, and then it's like the stuff starts to come up because it has to come to the light to be healed. And of course, that is painful, and that takes a lot of courage to sit with the stuff that starts to come up. And I think if you don't have the right support for that, I can understand why people would just say, forget it, I'm not going there. And they just shut down again. So I think, I'm very grateful because the universe really did deliver people to me that helped me every stage when I was ready for, the next person kind of came in to meet me for the next bit that helped me to look at things. So really ask, the Bible does say, ask and it is given.
Right.
And I obviously had asked, but didn't know I was asking. It was completely in innocence, really. And then I started to say, oh, okay. So when I sort of, had this different experiences, look what happened. This person came in. So that's very common.
Right.
But if we're in resistance, it's going to be a longer, tougher journey. Because the ego, as I say, does not want us to look at our stuff.
Right.
And so I would really always say to people, get the right help, because we have to bring the darkness to the light, and we have to go within.
Right.
I don't know. There is no bypass, unfortunately.
No, there's not.
No.
Go through it.
Yes, exactly.
So
Yes.
we've examined what that means, a spiritual awakening. Why do you feel we have a spiritual awakening?
Well, we're actually just coming back to who we are, that we fell asleep, so it's called an awakening. We are waking up, but we came into this supposed world, and I really feel that we have many lifetimes, and in those different lifetimes, we come to experience different things.
Yes.
And so, for example, I believe now, I wouldn't have understood that at all until the last few years, but I chose, my soul chose to come down to be this person in this body, in this age, and with the family, the set family dynamics, etc., etc. And then in this lifetime, I came as a very shy child. And I was very much a pacifist. As I say, if I saw any fighting or horrible things in the world, it was very painful.
Right.
So, and it's funny, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was saying, I'm sure probably in another lifetime, I was probably someone really horrible, really, because I really can't bear any violence or that kind of thing. Very sensitive to that. And then, so I think as each lifetime, as we learn to forgive, I think forgiveness is a massive part of these different aspects of ourselves, which we're actually forgiving.
Right.
And because we actually, leaving God, again, use what word works for you, but leaving our source is excruciatingly painful. And so if we just function in this world as this body, believing this body can die, and all the fear associated in the world, then we're not living as our true self. Because when we're in love with a capital L, there is no fear. There can't be, because love is pure, love is everything.
Right.
And so the awakening is helping us to be in love, to be love, to radiate love, to extend love, because that's who we are. And that's with a capital L. So this isn't romantic love. This isn't, lost love, found love, that's not real love. It's just, right. That's the ego's love.
Right.
So we're waking up to the truth of who we are. And, there's many mystics out there, way showers and awakened ones, that they just radiate love and peace. And what a way to live, just to be in the presence of the now. And so that's what we're waking up to, that it's actually right here, right now, and it's within every single soul on this planet, without exception.
Did you know that Radiate Wellness is more than just a podcast? That's right. We're also a comprehensive, holistic wellness practice. Find out about our services, practitioners, and upcoming events at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. While you're there, visit our podcast page to read more about our great guests and even donate to the podcast. If you like our podcast, you can help in other ways as well, like subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening right now. Tell a friend, a family member, or a coworker about the great content you find here. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, or a positive review. Sounds like a small thing, but it really helps. You might like to know about our Facebook communities while we're at it. We have a free community, the Radiate Wellness Community, on Facebook for news and great free content. Our subscribers group is Radiate You, as in the letter U, but also, well, you. There you'll find curated replays of past classes, guest interviews, and more. And now, back to our podcast and back to our guest.
And of course, that's hard to the ego because, what about Putin? And what about Hitler? And what about the rapist? Yeah, it's the same in them. And that's a massive forgiveness to look at, to see, okay, I can see it in all my lovely spiritual friends. But the real sign, I think, of someone who's truly awake is just to embrace everyone the same, as in forgiving, because that's what Jesus did.
Right.
That's what the Buddha did. That's what God does. So to truly wake up, and there's a lot of work to get to that point, and I'm not there 100%. I'm still work in progress, for sure. I still have my triggers and fears, but I know how to work with them now.
Right. Yeah, and I believe that's why we're called human beings, the gerund rather than the human are, such as we haven't arrived yet. We're still working on it. So are there any among us who do not awaken, and why not?
Well, again, I think in each lifetime, there's an awakening, and then there's being awakened.
Right. Right.
So to be truly awakened, we are, as I say, we're literally in that peace and that joy and that love, and we're not in any judgment of anybody. Now that's rare.
That's rare.
It's rare. I mean, there are people out there for sure.
But are there any who do not go through the spiritual awakening, and why not?
Who are already awakened, you mean?
No, I mean who just never do.
They will eventually. I mean, it may take many lifetimes. And
right.
I really feel that there is a quickening. I think more people are awakening, and they're choosing another way. They're asking the bigger questions. And of course, that's kind of why the title of the book is The Ripple of Awakening, because it's like the amazing people I've met who've supported me, that ripple touched me. Yeah. And it's, as I'm sure you've experienced, when we meet these people that these earth angels really that come in, that then touches somebody else, so it's like handing on the baton. And so I think we can never underestimate when we do our own work and we say yes to this pathway, it's like, then that ripple will go out. So if you can imagine, as that continues, that's why there's a quickening, because I think more people are really opening up to it. So eventually, yes, everyone will wake up. I believe that, but not in this lifetime. There's going to be several lifetimes.
Right.
Yeah.
And what tools might someone have available to them as they're awakening?
Yeah, I mean, again, I write about that. I mean, there's several things that I think are important. I think one of the first things, again, I know for myself and for many people, is actually self-care and self-love. Yeah. Because we can be really hard on ourselves. Have you noticed that? We can be really tough on ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it's like, and all those that chat in the mind, that goes on, you're not good enough and you don't deserve this, and who do you think you are, and which puts us down. So I think I really, depending on where people are, it's like, let's start from that basis of actually starting to love ourselves. Yeah. And that's not an egoic love, that's just a genuine love and kindness to ourselves. And so starting to be able to put ourselves first and not feel guilty for that. Right. There's a great analogy someone told me once. It's like, if you've got a cup, you've got to fill your own cup up first, because if it's empty, what have you got to give? Yeah. Nothing. Right. And I think many of us are taught to run on empty, and that it's a worthy thing, look at me. But actually we've got to love ourselves enough first to care for ourselves. So I think that's key to start with. And with that includes looking at the mind chatter, those negative beliefs and the put downs that the ego just loves. So we have to bring those to the conscious, to the light, to start to release those. Right. for me, meditation is key. Prayer, I think that's really important, and it doesn't have to be associated with a religion, because I know some people resist it because of that.
Right.
But for me, it's like the bridge.
Yeah.
It's the communication between me and source. And like any relationship, we have to build that relationship. We have to have honest communication and authenticity. And so that being able to express all things to source, to God, because that's how they get healed, if you like, and source will help us with that. But we have to do our bit, and that's really important to start to develop, as I say, that relationship. And I think for many people, there's many pathways, to the one truth. And I know for me, yoga was very important for a long time. And then sort of I went through a phase where I dealt with quite a lot of my baggage, because that's obviously very paramount. We have to deal with our baggage.
Right.
And then what happens is that starts to heal, and all that stuff starts to come out.
Right.
We're naturally more open to receiving source energy. And what I found then is I was literally lighter, because I got rid of a lot of the heavy stuff I was carrying. I started to get creative, and I started to receive poetry, and then I started to go to a thing called the naked voice. So I started to express through my voice, and then dance came in, and then all these things. And it was like, I was like a kid, it's like, oh my God, because I'd cleared all this, as I say, a lot of, not all of it, but a lot of the heaviness. So I was lighter, literally lighter. And so the light could come in as well, you see. And that's our natural creativity, our natural self-expression. And of course, it's used in different ways for all of us, but I believe we have that. And, that childlike innocence that we forget. How many of us get very serious as we're, in adulthood, got to be this, got to be responsible. And I was so like that. I can't tell you. I mean, wow. But that I started to loosen up in all ways. My mind was looser, and my body then started to free up, because I was very rigid, because I'd been in a lot of fear.
Right.
So it's just beautiful. And when we say yes to ourselves and yes to the universe, it will meet us. And this is what I find so incredible. These amazing things would start to come into my life, and it's like, wow. So I can't even remember what your question was now, because I do tend to go off direction.
Yeah, the tools. I remember the tools available. Yeah. Oh, which I think we've covered them. And to me, the gold standard is meditation. I mean, that's the one thing that is a constant with everything. What do you feel was most helpful to you during that period of awakening?
I would say, for me, the main thing was having, my mentor, Sarah, who, when a lot of the darkness was coming, to have someone that I felt safe with.
Sure.
So that I could bring all of the crap out, basically, because there's for many of us, there is a lot there. There is. And I was quite a private person back then. And so I wasn't great in all the big groups and all of that stuff. That just didn't work for me then.
Right.
So I think to have someone that you trust is really important. That's honest.
Yeah.
And doesn't paint a pretty picture, because it's not pretty, to be radically honest with you. And I needed that. And she was radically honest with me, as well as incredibly loving. So I think getting someone, she'd been through it as well, and I trusted her for that. And someone that isn't trying to be a guru.
Right.
Because I think we need someone that will support us, hold our hands, but is ready to set us free. We've got the wings to fly free. And, like a bird when it's ready to leave the nest, sometimes you've got to give it a little push, haven't you? it's all right, you can do it. And I think we need someone that's there to say, yes, you can do it. I'm here for you, but fly free, so that we're not still caged in, like,
Right.
I think that's really key to getting someone who's authentic and has walked the walk. And for me, that I can't work with anyone unless I feel that. There has to be someone that I see as walking the walk and is just like me. They're not claiming to be some guru. That just doesn't work for me.
Right.
It just doesn't. So I think having someone to walk with you is very important. That I would say was the biggest thing, and then all the other stuff started to come in. But I think learning to connect with feelings is really key as well, because I had suppressed, well, I didn't even know how to feel. I think I was numb, really, to be honest. I was numb. And again, to not rush it. It is not a quick fix. It is, if someone says to you, oh, I can help you and you'll be healed in 6 months, I'd be a little bit, I'm not sure about that, because it just doesn't tend to work like that. So a lot of patience.
A lot of patience.
Yeah, a lot of patience.
And this was my follow-up question, is how can we support someone who's going through this?
Love them.
Mm-hmm.
See the truth of who they are. Yes, they've got stuff they're going to present with, like when my mentor met me,
Mm-hmm.
I had masses to deal with. But as I say, she saw who I was, and she held that vision, even though I didn't even know what that vision was. She held it 100%. And when you work with people or meet people who see who you are and know who you are, oh my goodness, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And yes, we're gonna fall apart. Yes, we're gonna look a mess. But if someone keeps that vision of the truth, it's so powerful. And now when I work with people, it's like they come and they present however they do, and that's absolutely perfect. But I know who they are.
Yeah. Because
someone did that for me, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can pass that on. And I think this is the gift, that when we've been through those, as I'm sure you know yourself, when you've been through it, mm-hmm. you can hold that light for them, knowing there's a way through. And there's no exception. Everyone can do this if they truly desire it. Right. And just, really holding that vision, I think it's so important. Because we're going to have days or months where we just think, I can't do this, and that's normal. It's normal.
It is normal, right? Because it is the ripples, it's the up and the down,
oh yes.
As we awaken, we find out that it touches more and more of our lives. It might start here, but then it expands as we go.
That's it. Yeah, it does.
How do you feel your life is different now after this awakening?
Oh boy. Oh my goodness. I'm a nicer person to be around. Definitely. I'm calmer. Mm-hmm. I'm here. I'm present. I'm really present. I'm still learning to be radically honest, but I really feel I can speak my truth now and not be scared, what people will think, because I was very much a people pleaser. So I'm not a people pleaser anymore. So that's massive. That was a massive journey. And I just think I'm genuinely lighter and more fun. I don't take things so seriously. I was so serious. If you'd met me years ago, oh my goodness, I had an A star in being serious.
What does that mean? What's an A star? Is that a British thing?
Well, that's like a top grade.
Oh,
you get
A+,
your top,
yes.
A+. You got I was like, yeah, I've got this one down. Being very serious. And so even when I went into my awakening, I was a very serious student for
So
a
I have to
while,
do this now, and I have to do this, and then I have to do.
Yeah, and I've got to get it right. I was the perfectionist as well.
Oh my
And
God.
now, oh my God, that's so gone. Honestly, what a relief not to have to worry about that anymore.
How
I
funny.
can't tell you. It's just, life's so much easier. It really is. And I think it's just, I live a very simple life. I think the greatest gift, I guess, is just being present as I can be, and sometimes clueless, to be honest. Like I don't have it all figured out.
And that's
And
okay.
what a relief.
Right.
Like,
Takes the pressure off.
oh my goodness.
Right.
It really
Good
does.
job.
Yeah. So just
And
calmer. Yeah, definitely a calmer person. Yeah.
now I know a lot of people going through awakenings who feel like they have to like get the stuff. Maybe that's an American thing. I have to, okay, I'm going through this awakening. I need crystals. I need all of the crystals. I need incense. I need a cushion to sit on. I need statues of Kuan Yin and Ganesh and all of these things. What would you say to that?
I'd say that is one of the stages. And I went through it as well, my love. I can assure you, I had all of that. And it's normal. And I think, okay, that's part of the ego seek and do not find, right? So if I get the crystals, if I get the gong, if I get the incense, whatever, and that's not to belittle people, that's certainly not to judge. Because I think it's so normal. I've seen it again and again, and as I say, I went through that too.
Right. It's like a kid in the candy store.
Well, it kind of is, but it's also trying to grasp something outside of us, right?
Right. That's true.
And that's, I think, again, I write about that in the book. There comes a point where, for me, that stuff just fell away.
Right.
And I literally don't have any of that kind of stuff anymore. I just don't, because I don't need it. And that's not to sound arrogant, because I'm not. But it's just like, it's like a child, isn't it? When they have certain toys at a certain age, they love them. And then all of a sudden they just drop them. They're done with it. And it's like, right, what's next? Because they've just outgrown it. And I suppose it's a bit like that. We outgrow those things. If we truly want to find the peace of God, to align to source, for me, it's just like everything comes from source and from within me. And those things outside, they're nice to have, don't get me wrong. It's nice to have a nice scarf, and it's nice to have a painting on the wall, but I'm not attached. If that painting was to go, if someone took this, I'm not attached anymore to things. Do you see what I mean? So there becomes a relinquishment of material stuff, but it doesn't mean we deprive ourselves. It just means if it comes, it comes. If it goes, it goes. You see what I mean? There's no, I need it. Because when you're in the vertical and you have the alignment to source, you have everything.
I feel like that in a way it's part of the death of the ego, or the shedding of the ego, because the ego says, oh, well, you have a headache, you need this. If you have this in your life, you need that. And so I feel like this is a stage of awakening that is necessary, because we're still attached to that feeling that I'm going through something, I need something, right? Where it's just a natural stage. Right.
It is, Christy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's to be honored, actually, and I think that's why it's important to help people to realize, it's not going to ever give you what you truly desire. It can't.
Exactly.
It just can't. Yeah. Right. And because you can't buy peace. No one can give it to you. And you can't buy love, no one can give you love. You have to be it, the demonstration of it. And, I watched the film Gandhi for the first time recently. I don't know if you've seen it. And
Ben Kingsley?
Yes. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. What a demonstration of, like, I mean, those kind of people who just, in their defenselessness, they're just, the simplicity again. They're not there to get anything or to be anything. It's kind of who you are. You just radiate that, I think. But that, again, that's, we just have to trust those different stages that we go through. And what's key, and I really want to add this, is that if you're in that stage, please don't feel guilty for that, because the ego will use that to say, well, look at you, you shouldn't be doing that then. So I'd always be really mindful, wherever you are, not to give yourself a hard time, because the ego loves to do that. It wants you to feel guilty. It wants you to think, well, you're not good enough, you're not doing it right then. So please don't use it as a stick to, hit yourself over the head with. Just say, trust, this is where I am right now. And you can't be anywhere else, can you?
Right.
You are where you are.
Yeah, I have not yet mastered by location. So, but yeah, be where you are. No, I think that's beautiful. Right. Now, I noticed that the website that we're using for the book is your publisher's website. Do you have another website of your own?
Yes, I do. So it's my name. So it's all the W's, and then annemariemarchant.co.uk. So Anne-Marie has no E on it, but there's a hyphen. So it's annemariemarchant.co.uk.
Okay. .co.uk. Okay. And your book is, of course, through the wonderful John Hunt Publishing, which is, boy, they do some great books. They really, really do. And if I can give a shout out to your publicist, Gavin, he is amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you to him. I mean, the book is now on Amazon and in bookshops. So I'll show you the picture of it if people want to.
Yes. Oh, it is so gorgeous. Who did
There it is. Well, it's wonderful, the way it all works. Talk about asking it is given. It was a big healing journey, just getting the book into the world. But yeah, the publishers have a website that you can go on with just thousands of images, and that's the one. Obviously, I went through quite a few, but that's the one that kind of stood out in the end, and I just chose that one. So, and then they brought the rest together. So yeah,
I love the gorgeous colors, beautiful colors, and really represents that, because when we have this awakening, everything just has new color to it in a way,
doesn't it?
Right. And with the work that I do with hypnotherapy and as a medium, the other dimensions have these amazing colors that we don't even have here. So color is very, very important to me. So Anne-Marie, is there anything we have not talked about that you think is important?
Oh, it's a big topic, isn't it? But I think, have faith. I'd say to people, trust. Trust is so important that, there's times when we're really in those dark places and we really think it's okay for everyone else. They can do it, but not me. I've been working with a client recently who just said the same. I think everyone else is going to do it, but not me. And I want to say that is normal. It's one of the stages where we really hit the deck, and to trust that you deserve to wake up. You are the love. It's in you. And, to trust that the things will come. And I think patience is I've mentioned it before, but it's a biggie, because ego loves to put us on the timeline, say, well, you're not awake yet, or you haven't done that yet, and also to be really mindful of I'll be happy when. Right. Future, or the regret, past, really watch the timeline thing, because when you're on a timeline, you're not here. And the only place you can truly connect to your source is right now. So just to help people to trust that process, and that it's not a quick fix, and they're not getting it wrong. It's so important to reassure people that it's going to look a mess sometimes, because it certainly did for me. I can assure you, it really did. So to have faith that it will look a mess sometimes, but once you're through it, my goodness, it's worth it.
Oh my goodness, it is. Well, I think of it like Tiger Woods learning a different way to hold his club or a different type of swing. At first, it's going to be a mess, but then when he masters it, it all comes together.
Yes,
Right.
indeed. Yeah, and that took a lot of patience, and practice.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting to talk with me today, Anne-Marie. I really appreciate it. I think this is an important topic, very important. And you do work one-on-one with clients who are going through a spiritual awakening. We
I
can
do.
find out that
Yeah.
information on your website, anne-mariemarchant.co.uk.
That's right. Yeah.
Go to
I've got a YouTube page as well. So there's a few recordings on there of different talks and things like that to help people. Yeah, as well. But yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it's such a gift. What a job to be able to, for you to meet so many people. It must be amazing.
I love my job. It is the best.
Fabulous. That's
Well,
beautiful.
thank you so much. And I'm sure we will be in touch, and I'd love to have you back sometime.
Oh, that's really kind. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Radiate Wellness is an international community of holistic and alternative healers dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.